Hello, everybody. It's 11 o'clock today, which has probably fooled you all because we don't normally do 11 o'clock. We have been doing Thursdays. It's Howe Ergonomics. It's me, Graham Coath, and Stephen Howe. It's absolutely tipping it down outside, which I'm really quite upset about, I have to say, Stephen, because as you know, at the moment, I'm into my running.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have done it now for 2.5 weeks solidly, every single day. And then I look outside that window and I think, oh, do I really have to on a day like today? I'm going to get absolutely drenched.
Yeah.
So anybody listening that's in the same boat and as you know is doing regular daily exercise, looking out their window at the moment, and they're seeing the wind blowing, it's howling a gale out there, the rain coming down. I just feel sorry for it. I'm totally with you there. Totally with you.
It's rubbish. I mean, it almost started, and as we're speaking, I'm looking at my window, and I can see it starting to rain outside as well. This weather almost coincided with the being able to eat outdoors, didn't it, in pubs and restaurants? Almost the day, I think, was it the 12th of April? The minute that came in, it then started to rain, and the weather's just been foul ever since, hasn't it? So. Yeah, well, we've got a bank holiday coming up, Graham, in about 10 days. That usually is a pretty decent weekend, isn't it? That sort of Whitsun weekend, and the kids then being off. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it will all clear by then, and we can all have a nice long weekend and a nice week, hopefully.
We have a comment already, which I find really interesting, which is it takes 2 years of time to get to normal condition. Now, what are we talking about there? Are we talking about the weather? Because I'm telling you now, the weather in England's never been at a normal condition.
No.
Are we talking about running? Because I'll tell you what, if we're talking about running and it takes 2 years to get fit, I might as well give up now. I don't know that I've got the mental I'm being completely honest. I don't know whether I've got the mental stamina to do it for 2 years before it stops hurting. I really don't.
How far are you up to, Graham? What are you doing every day? What sort of distance have you stepped it up, or is it same as what you started?
No. I've heard so much differing advice on all of this. Apparently, I did it all wrong anyway to begin with, because I shouldn't have been running. Have been running at all to begin with. I should have just done a month of walking. Apparently what some people say, but actually. I went off trying to do what I've been doing is 1.5K a day. It's the same loop every single day.
Okay.
And it starts off more sort of downhill and then goes flat. And then the second part of it's all uphill.
Okay.
Right. Which means that the second bit's harder. Especially with this wind, it's going to be fun. But what I've been doing is, to begin with, I went as far as I could go running, and then I stopped, and then did a tiny bit of walking just to kind of get my breath back and everything, and then I start running again. And then in the last week or so, I've been seeing if I can extend that first bit of running as far as I can go before I stop running. So I'm now yesterday was the first time I ran about half of it before I stopped.
Are you using something like Strava, the Strava app, to sort of time your runs and get a feel for how you're improving or digressing, whatever it would be?
No, and I'll tell you why. It's because I do not have the right kit even at this stage, right? I'm not going to be allowed the right kit until my wife says, I give up on things too easily. So she says we will invest in the right kit at the point where I've done this for 6 weeks.
Okay.
Right. So, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got to prove that I can maintain this. So I'm just wearing my normal soft shoes. I don't have proper trainers at this moment in time. I know that's bad, folks. I know, but it's fine. I'm going to just stick through it, and then I'm going to get a proper pair of trainers, right? And I've got a pair of like summer shorts.
Yeah.
But they're not like proper running shorts. So therefore, if I took a phone out and I put it in the back pocket, the trouble is it makes my trousers keep slipping down. Even though I've tied
get one
them
of those for your arm. Get one of those arm straps.
Well, that's the point. So I need a proper kit, and then if I had an armband thing or whatever, then I would do that, and then I could have the Strava wrap. But at the moment, it's a bit of a pain in the backside, literally, if I run with my phone in my back pocket. So I just go at the moment, but I will get there. I will get to all of that, and I will do it today. Yes. I might even put a post on LinkedIn with a picture of what I look like after I've been doing it, because it's not going to be pretty. But I would recommend it to everyone. I do feel better. And the really interesting thing as well is, from a eating perspective, is that I find that by doing the exercise in the middle of the day, which is great when you're doing a lot of sedentary sort of work, is that I don't want to eat as much.
Oh, so it sort of suppressed your appetite?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I honestly believe that one of the reasons we eat when we're physically not doing very much is because actually we kind of get bored.
I think it's boredom, especially at the moment with so many of us still carrying on with it. I mean, I know you're doing it, it wasn't what you did before and it isn't what I've always done, but I'm convinced that it is boredom of, I'm at the same place, the same desk, the same chair, everything's such the same that you almost just you sort of get lulled into it, don't you? I need a little sugar boost just to break the monotony. And then the problem is one sugar boost turns into 2 or 3. And then before you know it, it's all gone pig.
Well, it doesn't help when your wife cooks really great things at the weekend, like flapjack, homemade flapjack, and then leaves them in a glass dome in the kitchen. Yeah. And then every time you go past the kitchen, it's like, oh, look at that flapjack.
It's only one.
It's one. only one flapjack.
Yeah. The size of a brick.
But I think really, in all honesty, I think something about it as well. I think actually, if you go out and you exercise, because you begin to feel that you almost mentally as well think, I really don't need to be putting that in my mouth. There is, I think, for a lot of people, and it's something we should have talked about before. I think for a lot of people, in terms of both their kind of mental health and their physical health, that kind of, it's really easy to get into that kind of slump of, do you know what? I just feel like I'm not getting anywhere with losing weight, etc., or my I'm not doing anything about my health, and therefore I'm just going to eat something, because what's it matter anyway? Because I'm just, and before you know it, you've put on 2 stone.
Yeah.
It's really, it can be that just real downward spiral. So I think, you've got to almost physically take the bull by the horns, get out there, do the exercise, watch what you're eating, etc. And I think as you do the exercise with doing a bit of a, I shouldn't say diet, because I know dietitians will tell us you don't do diets, but watch what you eat and think about what you eat and what you're putting in your mouth. And I think for most people as well, I really think, especially through this pandemic period, etc., it's been the in-between meals that have done it for people. It's the snacks. Really has been.
It's just been almost the monotony of some days, hasn't it? You're needing something to break that cycle of routine, and it's I'll just go and have a biscuit. And they say, once you pop the biscuits open, we always have a rule in our house, predominantly around Christmas time, where if you open a box of chocolates, or particularly after 8's being popular here, you have to see the whole box through that night. There's none of this sort of putting them away till the following day. It's if they're open, they're open. So and I think that's a bad habit of mine. I almost yeah, that's not a good one to be in. But I did get into the habit of, we've opened, we might as well crack on, and and then before you know it, there's a box of something being polished off, and there's half a stone being piled on. So yeah, bad habit.
Absolutely,
very bad habit.
It's a bad habit, and we won't even go there in terms of drink, because I think that's another beast. But I think even with that as well, it's just been the fact that people haven't been going out to pubs has probably made it worse. Because actually buying cans of whatever or bottles of whatever from your supermarket and bringing it home and drinking it at home, it's cheaper, isn't it? So you drink more. So,
and again, like the chocolate analogy, if you've got a bottle of wine and you've cracked it open, well, there's no point putting that little bit back in the fridge. We'll just have another half a glass each, and there you go.
There you go.
Moderation.
Good and done away. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about this morning, albeit incredibly controversial, I do wonder whether we should leave it for when we get Nicola here, because I'd love to know her views on it as well. But it's my goodness, didn't I kick off yesterday with my poll?
The poll king really went to town with this one.
Oh yes, I do you know what? It was one of those things. I'll have to go back and tell a little bit of a story here. I did a poll a few weeks ago, or no, maybe about a week ago, because I woke up one morning and I had a really great idea for a poll.
Okay.
And then something happened in the house. The kids were playing up downstairs, and it's quite madness. And then by the time I got to write it, I'd completely forgotten what it was. So that morning I did a poll on forgetting things.
Okay.
Forgetting what you're going to write content-wise, and that did really well anyway. So that was great. But the thing that I'd forgotten, which I knew would come back to me as soon as I'd written it, and then I wrote it down and I put it away because I thought I'm going to wait and do this after the 17th. When things changed again, was this thing about masks.
Yeah,
because I just think I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating that when this pandemic first started in England, we didn't have to wear masks.
Yeah,
right. That was what the guidance was. We didn't have to wear masks. Then we're told we got to wear masks, and we're told that wearing masks stops the spread, right? And sorry, folks, whether you agree with it or not, that is what the government was telling us.
Yeah,
that's what the government scientists were telling us, that actually the by wearing a mask you stop the spread of this, right? Now, I asked this morning because I've had some really interesting conversations with people about masks. There's a whole debate about which kind of masks are better, in terms of fabric masks or the proper sort of medical type mask, etc. But there have been a lot of people that I've met out and about who have almost become very comfortable wearing a mask now. And I thought, I'm just going to put it out there. For some people, that has now almost become a way of life.
Yeah.
And some people have said, which is what I wrote in the post, that actually wearing a mask has actually prevented them getting a cold.
Yeah.
Or it stopped, they haven't come home with so many colds and stuff. And also on a cold day, a lot of people just feel it's actually quite nice to wear a mask and actually stop the face from getting, chapped up or whatever. So there was that side of things. And I just wanted to know, did people feel that by wearing a mask, when we get told stop wearing a mask, you don't have to wear a mask, will some people continue to wear a mask? Because it has become habitual to some people, or some people have actually found a benefit in it, etc. but that kicked off.
So
And
last time I looked, you had about 3,000 votes. Was it something like that, Graham, or was it?
No, it's nearly. It's about 3,000 votes, which
Right,
is
okay.
a huge amount.
Yeah.
Cool. Maury would be really pleased with that, wouldn't they?
And can you get a snapshot up on the screen anywhere to share with people? Can we see what the voting looks like? Which is of no help to our Spotify audience, but
well, we will just tell our Spotify audience what that looks like. So if you bear with me a second, because whilst we're on, the internet is slightly slow in terms of other things, but I'll see what I can do at the moment.
Just whilst you're doing that, Graham, you were mentioning about does it become habit for people? It still amazes me the number of people when I have been out and about who are in a car on their own wearing a mask. Just, talking about how it's become a habit for people. I mean, that is a situation where if you are in a car, your own personal car on your own, there is absolutely no need for you to have a mask on. But I've regularly see, if you're out on a journey, you'll see 2 or 3 people who are doing that. So as you say, I'm not commenting on whether that's right or wrong, but it's become a habit that even in that situation where it's not necessary, and it never was necessary, that people are doing it.
Well, I've done that. And I'll tell you why I've done that.
Right.
It's because otherwise I'll forget my mask.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean?
Actually, they don't trust themselves to get to the shop and remember it, so they put it on when they go out of the house.
Well, just because it's like a coat. I mean, I lose coats, Stephen. I mean, I've lost coats on trains before now, so I'm kind of like that. I'm forgetful about things. So for me, when I've been in a rush, sometimes if my mask has been in the car, I have like a little pocket thing that it goes in the car. Sometimes I'll just put it. I think I'm in a rush. I've got to go there, and I'll need my mask or whatever. I'll just put it on now.
Yeah,
because it'll save me thinking about it later on. Okay, so I've uploaded it to the wrong bit, so you won't be able to see it. There we are. It's 2,976 votes so far.
Impressive.
2,976 votes.
And Graham, compared to the polls you've done, on an average day, what would you normally get for a poll? Just to get some context around how this has really drawn people in.
400 or 500 votes.
So we're talking 500-600% increase on this one poll because of the subject matter.
Yes. Okay. So here's the results in the middle now. Will you continue to wear a face mask even when the government tells us we don't need to anymore? 53% no. 23% yes for a bit. 4% yes in the winter. I'd add that in there because of these comments that people have said to me about, I'm going to wear it when it's colder, when there's more chance of getting a cold, etc., and it keeps my face warm. And yes, in large public groups. And I think that's quite interesting as well. So there's a response there about, maybe within public groups doing something. So really, really quite interesting results. 70,000 views of that so far, and it's still going up. So there's still 6 days left on this. This is going to be big results. If you haven't voted on this yet, please put it in, and we might even come back to this next week because this is fascinating.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Absolutely fascinating. I'm going to leave that as an around for us for a minute because I think that's quite cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, we've been asked a question.
Yeah. I won't. You won't.
But then he says,
What about you?
Is he asking us about masks? I'll happily offer my opinion. Long term, I don't think it's something we want. I tell you where I definitely would wear one going forward. I can't say where I wouldn't. Tell you where I would. As an infrequent user of the tube in London, I have to say, if the tube goes back to what it's been in the past, where it is sardines in a tin, I have to say I would, in that environment where you are, literally packed in and people are almost on top of you. I certainly wouldn't for things like, going to a football match or things like that. But I have to say the ones, and there might be others that would come to mind, the one that would definitely, I think I would be the London Underground.
Yeah. And is that because in that situation, and I think it's a fair point, in that situation, you probably think that there's going to be no kind of governance over who's coming through that situation. I would think in any kind of big social situation, like a concert or going to see a sporting event or whatever, there's going to be some. Is there not going to be some element of testing or some element of vaccine passport or whatever going forward? I mean, I'd be interested to see where the government's going to go with that as well. Because
it's an interesting one. I think anything. I think. Yeah, yeah. I've just seen what Jody said.
The tube's not stopped being sardines.
No.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Interesting. I was going to say, having not been on it for 14 or 15 months, and obviously that's sort of Jodie's neck of the woods, so I'll take her word for it. But I think when you're talking outdoor concerts, I don't know. I think indoor things. I think you've very much got to split them in two. I think indoor and outdoor. Outdoor, to me, I struggle with it. I think it's difficult. Indoor things, for a period of time, it will clearly continue, won't it? But do we have to? For how long? Yeah, for how long do we have to? Do tests and things that are indoors? I think people will just push back. I think it's got to be proportionate, and I think it's got to be in certain specific circumstances. If there's too many things on that list, I think people will just rebel. And the problem you then get is it then stirs up sort of more fear and more concern, doesn't it? And they've got to be there's a fine line to tread between getting the rules right and not antagonizing the public, and that's the difficult one that whoever's in charge has got to follow, isn't it? Really, that where's the line? How do we sort of stay and keep everyone on, or as many people as possible on side?
Yeah, absolutely. I was shocked. Was I shocked at the amount of sort of opinion today about anti-mask opinion? I don't know. Maybe it was to a certain extent. I certainly know there were a lot of people saying you don't have to wear them. You do not have to wear them. Why are people? I mean, there are a lot of people actually asking that question. Why are people wearing masks? And I found that a little bit odd because I thought, well, people are wearing masks because they're being asked to.
Yeah.
And I suppose what was actually being asked in those questions when people were asking that is, why are you doing what you're being told to do?
Yeah.
And that, which is a much bigger question. But, and I did invite, I don't know whether you saw that, but I did invite Mr. Hancock to come on and talk about this morning. Clearly, he hasn't had his porridge yet, and he hasn't answered to me. But it's a shame. And if we could get Nick Hancock on, if you're watching now, come on next week. Because
hang on. What would Nick Hancock have to do with it? Do you not mean Matt Hancock?
Yeah, Matt Hancock.
You said Nick Hancock.
No, comedian. I didn't. I said Matt.
You did.
No, I said. Did I?
You didn't. You said Nick that time. You wrote Matt, but you just said Nick Hancock. And I'm thinking,
okay.
Maybe he just wanted to talk about Stoke City or something. Wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, he probably would. Sorry, that's a Freudian slip. Matt Hancock. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd love Matt Hancock to come on, and talk to us about this, because I think it's really, really interesting that are the government aware of just how much people have not been abiding by what they think they're abiding by? Because clearly, given the content of that post this morning, given the response to that post, there's an awful lot of people who have decided, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not judging it either way, but they have decided that if they go to the supermarket or they go to a public place where they have been asked to wear a mask, right? For example, our school run, every morning we are all told we have to wear masks. But clearly,
is that on school premises? When you enter the school premises, yeah.
But But clearly, these people have decided that because it is not a legal obligation to wear a mask, and you're just being asked to wear a mask, that they're not going to. But what I'd love to know what the government's response to that is. I'd love to know what they actually feel about that, because, if they believe at the end of the day that there is scientific proof to back up that we should be wearing masks, and they believe that we should have been doing all of this, and people are not doing it because they believe that actually it's just guidance, they don't actually have to do it, it's not legislation, etc. Somewhere between the two things there's a disparity. That it's not, the two things don't sit together.
Graham, does this not pull in sort of the same thing around these amber countries for holidays? You can travel there, but it's not illegal, but they're telling you not to go there for holidaying. So, it then starts to get into that area of I mean, we've touched on things, tying it into ergonomics with the whole DSE thing. It's that sort of guidance versus law, isn't it? So again, pulling that piece in as well around masks is look at the holidays. So you can go there. It's not illegal, but we suggest you don't.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because how confusing was that during the week? We've just changed our holiday. We did it. We had a holiday booked to Bulgaria for last year. We obviously had to do something about that because that wasn't going to happen. So in order to not lose any money last year, we pushed it through to this year. We were going to go this year in August. Bulgaria is on the amber list.
Okay.
Now, but we do not want to isolate in our hotel, because that would cost us an absolute fortune. There's 6 of us, so that's expensive. So we've moved it to next year now, and we're going to Coath. Okay, it's a lovely place, Coath, and we're going to a hotel that we really, really wanted to go to last time, but we couldn't afford it. But because we've, got 2 years worth of saving up that we've mainly paid for, we pay a little bit extra and we go to this hotel. Hopefully by 2022 it will be all right. But I mean, looking at it was a minefield. You look at this list and you see all of these countries on the amber list. There are very few countries on the green list, which most of those you really wouldn't want to go to. Israel, the Falkland Islands. Holiday destination number 1, the Falkland Islands. I mean, really, come on.
It's a rock. It's a rock in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that's very cold and very wet. Why would you want to go there?
While you go there, you can have the whole Margaret Thatcher memorabilia tour. I mean, it's just. I mean, why you would want to do that? But so you get to this, you wouldn't look at the red list because it's red. Okay. So you look at this amber list, and then of course, Boris comes out midway through this last week to go, just want to explain that, although this amber list is there, so that you can travel to these countries, of course, remember that you're not meant to be traveling there for leisure. What? People have already got on planes. They've gone. We've got thousands of passengers. I think there was something like 120 something flights a day or something going.
You see, I thought with the amber ones, it was okay to go, but you had the quarantining piece at the end. I thought the difference between green and amber was green, you come back, you do a test and crack on. I thought the amber was it's okay to go, but there's some sort of quarantine period, whatever it would be. But then that suddenly then changed to you shouldn't be going. Well, that wasn't how it originally was mentioned.
I feel that somewhere in that line it changed. And I honestly believe, to begin with, it felt like the amber list was, yes, you have to sacrifice some of your freedom when you get back. But you could go and holiday there. And then suddenly it was very definite from the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
If you go to an amber country, right, it should only really be for work or for, because you have to, because of some kind of family emergency or something.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you go to an amber country.
Mm.
And as if by magic, we get a third person to come and talk about this. So, hello.
Hello, hi.
Hello. Inspired Ergonomics. You're very low.
I'm very low. Oh,
yeah. Well, you're very low in as much as Nicola Adams is actually obscuring half your face at the moment. So
that's not good. I'm going to release my chair.
I don't know. I don't know whether we can do something about that. But there we go. Is that any better? No, probably not.
We can only see half of you there, Graham. Although that wasn't. Some would say that's an improvement.
That's better. That's better, Nicola.
There we go.
So you've joined us. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Nicola Adams, round of applause. You've
friend of the show.
Us.
Hello.
Yes, hello. You've joined us in the middle of the of two-pronged debate about face masks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you saw my poll from yesterday, which
missed it.
Well, you missed it. I will bring it up on the screen in a minute, and you'll be able to see it. And I'll give you a minute just to sort of imbibe the amount of data that's there, and then give us a clue. But thing around face masks, and also we're just talking about holidays and amber, and how confusing it is for people. Really? I just think with all of these issues, it's just become incredibly confusing. I was just saying that
you can't go. You can see family. You can't see family.
Well, we were just saying we were initially, both Stephen and I, initially foolishly thought that the amber list was really sort of, yes, you can go, but then you have to isolate.
Yeah.
And this is holidays are on. Okay. Yeah. But then the PM in the middle of this last week has said, no, you can only go. Amber is only for leisure. No, not for leisure, only for emergencies and or business where you have to.
Yeah.
Right. And yet people have gone.
We got invited to go to Spain, a friend who lives there. But yeah, don't think that's going to happen. No. It is very confusing. And if you'd booked a holiday, what are you supposed to do? You've got to wait for the PM to say no, for the companies to reimburse you as well. So yeah, it's a big problem. Isn't it?
Do you think, given all of the confusion, we're likely to have a third wave? Or we probably had a third wave, another big wave.
Bit worrying, isn't it? Bit worrying. But they're saying the vaccines are going to be are actually working well, the efficacy as well against this new virus, this new variant rather. So let's hope. It's really difficult to know, isn't it? We keep thinking as though we're supposed to be learning from this sort of the initial where we're all supposed to be working from home for what was it, 2 weeks at the beginning to 15 months later.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share with you now on the screen that poll data, which is as of a few minutes ago. So we're up to 2,976 votes, still going up. 6 days to go. So this will be huge. Will you continue to wear a face mask even when the government tell us we don't need to anymore? A definitive no at 53%. Some people saying yes for a bit, a tiny proportion saying yes in winter, and 20% saying yes in large groups. But what was really interesting, Nicola, was there was a high proportion of people commenting on that as well.
Yeah.
I think well over 70,000 people have looked at that. A lot of people saying, I've never worn a mask. I don't want to wear a mask. And you don't have to wear a mask.
No.
There's no legal reason why you should wear a mask. Why? In fact, a lot of people saying, why are you wearing a mask?
It's really interesting on the tube. I went into the office actually this week. On the tube, still very empty. there seemed to be more compliancy, I noticed, on the tube this time than a couple of months ago. But there are still obviously people who aren't wearing masks. In the office, you're now allowed to walk around without a mask on.
Okay.
But we were talking about this in the office, actually. It's a communal, it's a workspace. So they are thinking of making it mandatory to do the rapid testing twice a week. They are certainly doing it, the people who run the workspace, twice a week, just to give you that extra level of comfort that that you're not putting yourself and other people at risk when you're going into the office. So that's kind of interesting to see how that will work out. But it is, I have to say, really liberating taking a mask off inside an office. You can actually talk to people properly, and you can see the expressions on your face rather than trying to communicate through your eyes.
You're saying there, Graham, about it not being legal, and I don't think it was. I don't think it's not it's not the law that you have to wear it in a shop. I don't think, is it? It's suggested, but it's not legal. But you do see some people who go in without it, and I do think I wouldn't have the nerve to do that. I wouldn't be totally comfortable to get, because I can see in some places you'd certainly get challenged, wouldn't you, about, hang on a second, why haven't you got one on? And they can't technically stop you, but I would feel extremely awkward, say, walking around a supermarket without a mask on, thinking everyone's looking at me. I can feel their eyes on the back of my head. And for me, I think you've got to have a lot of nerve to really not only believe that you shouldn't wear the mask, but then to follow it through and actually in a public place do it. I think that you've got to have some gumption about you to do that.
This is actually what I'm really quite surprised about, in a way, is the amount of people that have got that amount of nerve, because clearly from all the comments that came back, I mean, there was one comment that I responded to where someone said, why are you wearing a mask in the supermarket? And I said, well, basically, where I shop, if you don't wear a mask, every time you go in, because they have security in the shop where I go, which is just over the road, they will stop you and they will ask you, to put a mask on or prove the fact that you don't need to be wearing a mask. And I guess it's a bit like you. I just can't be hassled with that, So regardless of what I think about it and whether I should be wearing a mask or not, I just want to get in that shop and get out again.
Exactly.
So I don't want to be stopped every time I go in and someone go, "Are you going to wear a mask? Could you do your hands, please?" etc. And I'd be interested. I'd be interested to know as well, and maybe this is a follow-up poll, but I'd be also interested to know whether some of the people that have said, no, we don't need to wear masks, full stop, I don't need to wear a mask anywhere, are they doing anything else in order to make themselves safe? Okay, so do they feel that I don't need to wear a mask, maybe because I've had 2 vaccinations, or maybe I don't need to wear a mask because I'm doing regular testing, and therefore should negate the need to wear a mask? Or, or what percentage of those people are, well, I'm not doing testing, I'm not going to have the vaccine, and I'm not going to wear a mask? Because that's, knowing what that variant is. But I would be really interested to know whether the government's got any idea that there's this a huge amount of people out there that are not following guidelines, regardless of whether it's legal or not. But there's a huge amount of people that are not following those guidelines, and what do they think about that?
Yeah.
I said before, Nicola, it almost has very big parallels with the whole DSE piece, doesn't it, really? The whole guidance versus law. I started saying to Graham, crowbarring in the ergonomic piece, is it does have very much parallels, that actually there's a set amount of advice given around DSE. Yeah, how many organisations do we know that do absolutely nothing about it? So again, it's how do you address those issues? It's You know,
Well, I mean,
do you
everybody-
have to make it the law?
Yeah, everybody's an individual, and then we all want our rights and all want our own sense of agency. But whether people need sort of guidance, the trouble is when people feel uncomfortable because someone else isn't wearing a mask, no matter what your feelings are. It's about for me, it's kind of about the feelings of the other person, and giving them the comfort and the security that if they do decide to go out to a supermarket or wherever they are, that they will be safe if they feel that they're not going to be if other people around them aren't wearing masks. So maybe, I guess that's where I'm coming down.
Yeah, I mean, Alison Thompson there is just echoing really what you're saying there, is that she's just upgraded to FFP2, which I don't know how you wear those in a workplace situation, to be honest, Alison, because I can hardly breathe in those. But there you go, very, good for you for wearing on work site visits, because in a way, because she's there on somebody else's site, it's protection for other people. It's making other people feel comfortable, regardless of what she believes herself. Yeah,
definitely. If I was going into someone else's workplace or going into someone else's home for work, I would definitely be wearing a mask. It's a matter of courtesy. Yeah. Even when I've had vaccines, when that day comes.
So this is an issue that's just going to go on and on, etc. But yeah, I do think you're right to raise the parallels between this and HSE. Stephen and I were discussing last week, actually, Nicola, and it would be great to get your view on this. But we were saying, do you not now think it's time that the HSE regulations were actually completely overhauled and looked at again?
Yeah, because what was it, 1992? I mean,
some adjustments to that over the years.
When most people, of course there is, but now most people are using, 2 screens rather than 1, and sometimes often 3. Now also it probably should bring in the fact some sort of guidance about all these online calls, and how we should look after our back health and our mental health when being on these constant digital calls. And maybe now is a really good time looking again about the recommendations and how we optimize this sort of new level of hybrid working and the increased use of digital communication in our lives.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to have a look at it again.
I mean, it would seem to me a fairly sensible approach for the chartered body of ergonomists to sit down with HSE and maybe with some big industry leaders and actually debate that set of guidance and actually say, what should this look like?
Yeah. No, actually, the Irish band of it have actually given much more sort of detail on guidance versus the UK one. So yeah, I mean, it would be a great excuse to really look at those again. Absolutely.
Good. I think Nicola raises a great point. Oh, who's having their car
stolen?
Yes, sorry, that's outside mine. I do apologise. I'll have to keep myself on mute when you guys are talking.
Either that or it's a very angry bird.
I was going to say, Graham, Nicola raised a great point there, and we touched on it very briefly last week. I think it was Zoom Free Friday, wasn't it? Was it HSBC? And I think the guy from Zoom was saying how he wanted to get back into the office because there was too many calls. He had 17 of his calls in a day. But actually, you do think, is that something that needs to be looked at? When these regulations were written, there was no, Teams and Zoom and Remo, whatever the platform is. They were never ever around or being used. So there should be a limit to how many hours of these type of calls you should be doing in a day. Because again, it absolutely doesn't allow for any sort of movement. On top of computer work. And again, how you enforce it, who knows? But even if they started with some guidelines, that then employers have to roll out to their staff to say, you need to make sure you are not doing more than this number of calls in a day, because it's tend to find with this, you're quite intensely looking at the screen. I often, when we've done these calls, come off and you do feel your eyes of, for an hour, you've been staring at it. If you're using your keyboard, you may be just sort of glancing up and down, but this is very much full on.
I literally just got off the call from someone who was having back-to-back calls all day, every day. Yeah. And so interestingly, he actually told me that Teams have now done a cut-off 10 minutes early, so you can't have hour-long calls back-to-back. So you're having that little 5 or 10-minute break is just so important for the sort of the mental, the physical, and the visual health. It sort of helps with that compliance. We always recommend the 20-20-20 rule, which is looking away every 20 minutes, 20 feet away for 20 seconds, because you're not getting the natural breaks from your screen from your colleagues walking past. So yeah, those back-to-back calls are really something that need to be addressed now.
But even with 10 minutes break, I just don't know how some people get any work done.
Yeah,
I mean, well, let's have a meeting, and then let's have a meeting, and then let's have a meeting, then let's have a meeting. By the way, Jeff, how much work have you done today? Work? I've been in meetings all day. Well, that's no good, is it? I know the answer. Let's call Goldman Sachs. Let's do 95 hours a week. I mean, that's the trouble, isn't it? That is the other problem with this.
Yeah, this guy had a bit of burnout because he was just working ridiculous hours in those back-to-back calls. So
because he was trying to catch up with his work in between,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous. And especially actually, if you've got any kind of cognitive processing issue, etc., as well, where actually you actually need to organize and formulate that information that you've just absorbed before, so that you can work on it before the next thing, or you're useless at taking notes or whatever, then there's these kind of back-to-back meetings is just sensory overload for a lot of people. It's just one bit too much information and not enough time to process that information.
To stay productive and, as you say, make notes to action on what you've learned or what you need to do between call to call. Absolutely, it depends obviously on the calls that you're doing, but
so I brought up a potential solution last week, which I'll just throw in there and just get your kind of view on, which is that actually part of the problem is that the HSE guidance is more around a risk assessment. And the problem with a risk assessment potentially going forward is that this is one of the reasons I don't think it's changed in years, is that it works really well when someone's working in one place, doing one thing. But as we move forward, if hybrid becomes the way forward and flexible working becomes more prevalent and people are chopping and changing where they work, how they work, in what environment that they work in order to fit in with their lifestyle, then actually that risk assessment bit becomes harder and harder and harder to do. So I said, should the guidance be more around, and maybe long term we see a change in this, but should it be more around making sure that your people have had regular, updated education in terms of how to work safely in different environments, in different ways, etc., etc. So it's more of an educational piece, still using people like yourself within that role, but rather than you do an assessment per se, it's more a case of, I have delivered you education. Well, I'm going to check to make sure you've comprehended that information. And actually, now you've done that. Next year, you're going to have a refresher on this, and we're going to cover, and in between, we're going to cover this and this and this. And actually, is that actually a more proactive way of doing it anyway?
You need to really empower people to be able to look after themselves proactively. So the education is absolutely the key tool in that. Some people may need bespoke, particular education to help with them around their own particular issues. And knowing what works for their issue will also give them more confidence to make those changes wherever they are and understand the reasoning why they should be doing it. But yeah, and empowering people to look after their musculoskeletal health themselves is so important when you're working in lots of different locations. Otherwise, I think, it's understanding the in-depth reasons why you should be sitting in a certain way or raising that laptop and using a separate keyboard, because otherwise you just don't get compliance. And as you say, if you're hot desking and you're working in lots of different areas, then you need to know how to make little adjustments accordingly, depending on the situation you are working in.
One of the things I've heard a few people talk about is this sort of, what hot desking in future will be totally clear desk policies. So as one organisation who we're still talking to about, where they're looking to kit their staff out globally, is they're going to be working at home, but when they come to the office, the desk is going to be bare. The monitor arm that's gone, the docking station's not there. So they need to be able to recreate that normal setup where they normally work, where they may have been assessed. They need the ability to create that when they go to the office. So can they set the screen and everything up to the right height? Do they have the ability to adjust the chair? And I know we go for chairs as a whole nother area, but actually do they have the ability to change that? Because otherwise, are they then going to sit on a chair that's not set up correctly for a day and create lots of problems? So it's great being able to sort of set up and have an understanding around your, let's call it your normal work of place. Let's say you're there 3 days a week, but have you got the ability to create that when you're in the office, the London office on a Thursday and the Birmingham office on a Friday, where they've got different chairs, they've got different desks? Yeah, that's the really key thing. Is it's great for 60% of the week, but what are you going to do for the other 40% of the week?
So understanding, educating people on the basics and the reasons why we're recommending certain things enables them to deal with those types of hot desking situations, and having the adjustability, the equipment there to adjust things accordingly in the first place is good. And actually, some companies are talking about equipping people with the right kit for the main place of work where they're going to be predominantly working. And maybe that's going to then need to be nice and lightweight, so they can then bring it into the office and then adapt their office when they're working there. So, trying to limit having to have 2 sets of everything, I guess. But so adaptation bits and pieces are going to be really important, and knowing how to use those properly.
Yeah, I think that is going to take off. I got sent this the other day, which is quite nice. It's a hot box. There you go. So that, there's companies now doing things like this where, rather than have that pedestal under your desk, which is it's a hive for germs. And it actually always was whenever I did workplace assessments with people as well, and they started looking in their drawer for things, and it's full of old bits of food and 200 pairs of tights if you're a woman or whatever, but it's or occasionally men, but that set of drawers gone. Something like that, a little hot box which you carry to a clean desk space which has been completely wiped down, that sits in a locker which is your locker. You choose. I think there will be more sort of bits and pieces like that, but I'm really interested in where this main place of work is going to be, because I think that's the bit that's going to be more difficult for companies to tie down. Really, I don't know that they necessarily will get it right, because I think a lot of people will want to do very hybrid. And, if that's the case, proper hybrid should really be allowing you to work at home and the office, home and the office, In fact, I saw something during the week that said that actually hybrid work, as defined by a lot of companies going forward, may actually start to kill flexible working. And I think that's that's a dreadful thing if that's the case. And again, it will be actually because people have missed the opportunity here, and they've missed the crux of what hybrid working should be about, which is empowering your people to work where they want, when they want.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's
making sure, because everybody now realizes that the office was great for that collaborative, creative work. So, you know, maybe you do need to set a day that team comes together in the office at the same time in order for that creative, collaborative work is. Otherwise, you know, and then otherwise sort of moving between bringing those people who are at home that day with the people together with the people in the office through digital technology.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'd be interesting to see it as this year progresses. I'd love to see it, and if people can send in examples, that would be great. But I'd love to see any examples of where people's office space has drastically changed. You know, or have you just gone back to the office as it was?
It's quite. I saw a piece recently, the whole discussion about it, that we've discovered that we can be really productive at home. And so now the workplace is trying to mimic the home to kind of bring that, whatever it is that we're more productive is, you know, probably the peace and quiet. So there's the quiet zones for our focused work, and then the other zones for the creative work. But that's just quite ironic, I thought.
Well, and I've seen that on some of the posts by you know, I follow Tom from Morgan Lovell on LinkedIn, and if you look at some of their latest designs of office spaces, there's much more of a homely type feel to it, and it seems to be going that way. And I see that will happen where new development is happening, or A&D is actually, you know, looking at a redevelopment of an old space. But I just wonder, on a sort of far more general level, how many businesses that have had an office who everybody went and worked from home, and now they're going back to the office, they haven't changed a single thing in that office.
Well, this is the problem with the digital technology. Also, another discussion with a client was they've realized when everybody's in the office, it's too noisy, because everybody's on the phone doing, you know, the calls with the clients that way, rather than being in a meeting room or the online calls. It's too noisy, so they can't accommodate the same number of people they had in the office before, not only for, you know, COVID security, but also because of the noise issue. So
in fact, the noise has got worse in the office, because I've even seen an influx of posts on social media of people taking their dogs into the office. I don't know whether you've noticed that across LinkedIn, but more and more people are now taking their dogs into the office because, and this is obvious, right? They've had those dogs in their space where they've been working at home, and they've missed their dogs. So they're now taking their dogs into the office.
Yeah.
So there's a number of offices out there that look like, you know, kennels.
And also you were saying about noise there. One of the things that, you know, and it's something that we've got involved in as a business, but one of the things we don't do is acrylic screens. And actually, a lot of the research shows that if organizations, to sort of from a COVID perspective, have put in acrylic hard plastic screens around desks, that material amplifies the sound, as opposed to sort of absorbing the sound. So what you're going to find is if they've installed these acrylic screens, actually that naturally is going to raise the volume in the office. And this is one of the things I remember at the very start. You know, we and other people were warning people about putting acrylic screens in offices. Maybe for retail, they're absolutely fine, but from an office perspective, it is going to have a serious amplification of the noise. So they're going to have that as well. If that's the route their business or their building has gone down, that's going to make the office even louder.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, folks, as you watch this throughout the day, if you've got an office which has changed in any shape or form, do take a photo of it, post it onto my profile. We'll bring that in another week. If your office hasn't changed at all, if you've done diddly squat in terms of changing your office since you've got back, and it's all remained the same. What are you missing from the home? What would you prefer the office to now look like? Do you want to bring your dog into the office? I don't know. Has it been an advantage going back, or really have you just now got these two spaces that work for you and you're not sure which space you should be in? Where are your main adjustments? Are they at the office or are they at home? Have you got a heavy chair that you have to lumber between one place and the other on a regular basis? Or have your company been nice enough to give you two lots of equipment, one in each place? We'd love to know the answers to all of these, so please do let us know, and we shall bring that up another week. Thank you both for joining us today. I feel that I really do feel that the mask thing may continue. I think this is going to be a big one. We'll probably come back to it next week when that poll has run its course, just to see what the outcome is, the end up outcome is. But certainly, I think whatever happens, we just need a little bit clearer guidance going forward. As we start to, fortunately, come out of the worst part of this now, and we head back to normal, I think more now than ever, we probably need really good guidance as to what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing, because otherwise, I think if it's confusing, we may end up going back into a bad situation again, which we don't want to do. So, Nicola, thank you. Have a good rest of the day. I expect you'll be busy assessing people.
Have a good day.
Thank you. And Stephen, thanks for joining us again. We'll see you same sort of time next week. Bye for now.
Cheers. Bye.